don't very often. Reasons are because of problems I actually experienced a long time ago. As a kid, basically, it's had a rather fun experience going through conversion therapy problems and such. And trying to actually deal with things in my past and deal with actual therapy sessions and such. It can be monotonizing and challenging for me at times to think about the past situations and such. I spent a lot of my time actually practicing artistic stuff, basically. I've been into crocheting, knitting, and crafting dream catchers, and also origami stuff, painting. I'm also into electrical stuff. Basically, I've done stuff in electrical, and it's not relatively the way I really imagine things, basically. And I really don't really have like the greatest like actual situation in understanding certain things about my actual way of doing things right now. So I got a lot to learn, actually, it feels like. And I've been trying to be more calm and relaxed with people and how they treat me inside of places, basically. I did go through puberty. That wasn't really fun for me. Not a really fun experience. Plenty of past regret, basically from the trauma that I actually put up with throughout my life. I'm known by the name Ryuki. I've been trying my hardest to actually create my character, and that's been rather rough trying to do. And I get it that there are a lot of actual VTubers out there trying to get me going out there, basically, and try to actually do VTubing and such. I've been trying to actually get into the idea of doing it and everything else. I've been rather actually laid back a bunch, and I know that I do a lot of video gaming stuff. Basically, I got a lot of experience from video games. I've also done a lot of testing, a lot of actual situations where I actually test actual games that I've bought, and actually it's really theoretically what it is. I do have a few occasions where I've done it for companies, but it was just that I actually initiated my actual request for the actual testing. I did actually do testing for Palia Online. I've done testings for other games and such. I've had offers for testing other people's games and such. Also in 3D environments and such, where you're in virtual reality. I've also had those. I do know how to use a lot of actual electrical equipments and such. I technically look at myself as a fox that is able to actually just get used to the idea of computers and such and everything else. I always found it rather interesting that while I was in college, actually, I was actually into computer programming. I did actually program an actual video game a long time ago. That was probably, I'd say that since it was was like about around 2009, so give or take. I mean, that would be somewhere around probably 16 years, probably 15 years ago. And some odd months in and time and everything else. I actually constructed this actual video game that was centered around South Park. And it wasn't actually intentional that I actually used a character that was African American, actually. I thought it was actually really fun to actually create an African American character. I didn't really intentionalize it for intention purposes to make people really upset with me over racist reasons, racist appropriation. I thought the character was relatively fun, and the character uses my voiceover, and I actually created him basically for an actual entertainment reason. And he was actually centered around actually the idea that kids could actually do multiplication, division, and subtraction and addition too as well. I wanted to make it as engaging as I could possible and as fun as possible as I could. At the time when I actually created the actual program, that was actually in C#, and I created the actual situation, but I took the asset from South Park creators too as well, and I want to congratulate them for the actual allowing of use of their art, the artwork that they've done. I used the assets for that as well, which was a creative environment, and I want to give credit to them because it allowed me to actually create a wonderful game that actually blew my mind. That the little girl that actually enjoyed it was like my favorite time I actually ever got to see. Basically, she was actually having so much fun with it. I was just absolutely enjoying it, and it drove me to want to create more games. And I remember my teacher talking about doing AI work and everything else, and it's like I didn't know whether or not I felt like doing AI stuff, and I do like robotics and such, but I felt like what's a less violent way of actually entertaining people and such. And I thought about it a lot basically, and it took me a long time basically to think about it. I was actually thinking about creating a world that allowed people to venture around as a creature that wasn't had no genders basically. It would be allowed to actually wander around in a world basically, but it would be kind of literally simplified like scenario basically, but it would use a low polygon situation basically. But I thought about more and more, and every time that people actually started producing other games and such, it started making me think about what I can actually do with my characters. And my characters are actually little slime characters basically. They're relatively really fun characters basically. They tend to take on the person's actual personality basically. And it would be up to the person to make the choices and decisions on what they want their character to be like. I didn't want an actual situation where the player was actually going to be remotely stuck on having to be obligated to certain aspects of life. I wanted them to actually have fun more than anything else. Inside the game would be a situation where they could actually enjoy the environment, and it would have magical like situation to it. And the more I thought about it, even though AI comes along and everything else with the AI art, basically, I've actually spent most of my time actually doing the drawings. And I did a drawing basically that caught my friend's eye so badly that my friend actually thought he should actually be making this into something basically. And have you actually given it thought on what type of way that the game was going to be played? And as it goes for any typical like hack and slash role playing game basically out there, certain people have actually taken various different mechanics inside. And I thought, well, I could actually make this game that literally allows the player to actually enjoy a very inviting environment where the player itself basically tends to actually create the story around them. And the story would actually revolve around them. And they would actually they could actually have other players that actually incorporated various sexual storylines too as well. And it would be it reminds me of when I was a kid. Basically, I used to actually role play a lot basically, but didn't really have dice, and so it was just mostly just role play of acting, and we back and forth each other with the acting situations and such. And I thought that would be fun, that players could actually just role play themselves and in such ways basically. But it's like in a virtual reality world basically that allows them to be who they want to be basically. The slime actually doesn't really have a gender at all. And it allows you to actually have any gender you want. The character also has multiple class scenarios that are available that would allow the player to choose actually how to develop their character over time. The character is not set and bound to any actual reasonings of any sorts. It's just a character that would be allowed to actually have more available access to change up their character's actual way of doing things and such. They would actually theoretically be able to actually go into the environment, be able to bounce off the trees, do all sorts of things that are incredible, and it would have a splash effect animation type scenario that would happen. And I thought more about when somebody actually created the cartoon. The time I got reincarnated as a slime, it started actually like I literally liked it. I was like thinking, well, why can't I actually make a game that allowed players to actually feel like they can roam about, basically. They could actually get into various actual areas of the world, basically. And they could do even time challenges and such, dungeon crawls and such, open world scenarios and such. It would be like an open world Diablo-like scenario, basically. You can even have like a little haunted house-like scenario, basically, going on, where the player could be even also customizing their world to be dark, like Diablo 2. And they could actually allow the players around them to actually enjoy the idea of actually crawling around in another person's aspect of the world and such. I wanted to offer the mechanics to make sure that all players could actually choose the difficulty, the hardness, and everything else they want, or creative. They can also have the actual other things too as well. I wanted to actually create the game more centered around more of an actual, almost like inviting the emotional experiences that people could have. Basically, that would be centered around groups atmosphere type scenarios and D&D atmospheres. And I thought, well, there's some other aspects that people loved, and I thought, well, I need to incorporate those things. And I thought more about it, basically, that the slimes need to take on various different colors. They need to take on various different animal-like characteristics or human characteristics / animal characteristics. Whichever that may be for the player, the player's choice is actually revolved around their decisions. I would then actually allow the player to actually enjoy the actual environment and such. I started off with a name. Basically, I just was actually tossing around in my head, basically, and I thought, why not actually, because I started writing a story called Slime World. And Slime World, the slimes actually come to Earth, basically. The slimes come to Earth, and the slimes are actually looking at the humans who are having a complicated situation. And I thought, well, the slimes could actually technically be that gracing period, basically, that allowed them to have fun. Now, bear in mind that I know that my character has got a very vibrant purple, magenta color to the dress and everything else. And it's just that I haven't actually had time to learn too much about Vroid and how I was supposed to do it. I was actually working around on it, but I haven't had much time because I was dealing with a lot of gender dysphoria issues and such, that it's kind of hard to actually tend to do things around creating and everything else and manipulating the artwork to look good. I mean, there's plenty of aspects that I'm trying to learn about the actual how the character actually moves arms and everything else. Right now, I'm just locked in because I don't know what actual sensories that the characters use, or what actual whatever situation actually happens to be. I'm just actually right now. I'm a few centimeters or feet away. Well, foot away, basically, or a couple foot away, a couple foot and a half. Maybe that's the point. The thing is that I've always found it fascinating to do games, and so that's what I usually do, is I create games. I love actually the fact that you can actually go fast through things and everything else and be able to just jump around and do things. But I wanted to actually allow the players the actual feeling that they have choice. They wouldn't be resorted to actually having to go through with an actual choice, even though inside of programming we actually have to go with an actual selection situation. And that would be up to the player to realize that in the option selection, that they have the right to actually choose whether or not, they want to use pronouns or not inside their environment. And if they want to use pronouns, that's fine, the option's there. And the difficulty is there too as well, and all sorts of aspects of it. The world is actually technically interesting, basically. So in order for the slimes to actually to do certain specific aspects of life, basically, they actually have to acquire minerals and such. They gotta digest and everything. And they actually have to use those minerals inside their body, basically, to craft various different items and such. So what actually would technically, theoretically happen, like just actually watching inside of, say, the time I got reincarnated as a slime, you actually are collecting the materials into your body, basically, and you're actually making it a part of you. So basically, the player would actually be able to get various upgrades rather sort of quickly and everything else. And they would be able to actually charter their course from one point to another point. They could be mining, they could be doing anything. They could even also do alchemy, chemistry type scenarios and such. They can also remain in a human form too as well, which is rather interesting. You could actually be, you don't really actually have to actually melt and slide underneath of things and everything else. What the game will do is actually take your actual character situations into mind basically, and it will assess whatever your situation is and go from there basically, and decide if or not that this would be a suitable scenario basically for you and offer you options based on your selections. Now, I understand that certain gamers actually don't like the preferred pronouns, and some players do. And sometimes, we do actually tend to actually throw in gender and all sorts of things and such. Whatever that is for you personally is your choice. Everything is going to be up to you to figure out. I think that when I gave it more thought and everything else about how the design was going to be, I thought, why not? This is going to be fun, and why not give it a shot? And, the thing is that I think that it would be a marvelous idea to see happen and at least see somebody actually enjoy it. I mean, if I'm the one programming or not. I've always valued the reasoning behind actually trying to give people an idea, at least an actual method and such that they could actually do, that they could actually get out there and start actually crafting a game that literally theoretically invites players to do something relatively unheard of, that they could actually technically cross-platform with other players and such. Now, these were my thoughts on actually creating the game. And the thing is that I never really kept my thoughts as closely guarded, nor my name. Even especially when it first came out, basically, I did this actually on Gaia Online, basically. I used to come into Gaia Online with purple hair and a black dress. And I'd always play the jigsaw puzzle game a lot. I thought that was the funnest thing I've ever played. I've actually had experiences where I've played Minecraft, I've played Roblox, I've played metagames as well. One of my friends, I think I'm considered their friend to me, basically, was Jesus. Jesus loved to actually has been making a game called Pirates World Pirates, or Pirates of the World, basically. Although, given the fact that you got the actual load times and speeds and such, and the polygons and everything else going on in there, I noticed that a lot of things were falling apart in there, and there's a lag time and everything else, and the needing for more actual equipment that could actually process the information rather quickly, and also less downtimes and such and everything else. I noticed that a lot of people are relatively upset these days, and at the hand of various leaders out there, basically. I get it that the leaders are actually having some problems, and everybody's got problems going on right now. And what better way to actually do is to actually get people to think about something positive. Now, not that this is actually supposed to take you away from going out there and saying something, to somebody about how you feel. Because your choices are valued out there. And the way that you approach those choices are yours alone. I know I'm going to get asked this question a lot, okay? Yes, I am a transgender, okay? I am a transgender that transitioned at the age of 38. I'm a male to female, and I'm trying not to be upset about it at all. I have, it's confusingly, but it rather actually causes me a lot of grief that the fact is that I've not actually been able to do very many things like actually being able to do everything that's magical and everything else right now. And I do love a hell of a boss. I do love actually let's see here. Crackies. Let's see here. Let's see here. Okay. Has-been hotel. I keep on thinking hotel has-been. I don't know why that actually happens. I keep on thinking has-been hotel. Well, okay. Well, I'm done for there. Let's see here. I'm trying to figure out the best way that I can actually do things around people, basically. I've had a bad vocabulary growing up. It's not rather easy to deal with. And I know it's usually not really age-appropriate stuff and everything else, and so I try to limit the way I actually talk about things. I know that a lot of people will ask me questions about your body when you're transitioning. So I noticed that a lot of you actually start wondering about what it's like. Well, depending on your circumstances of your psychological thinking and everything else, that actually has a lot to do with you personally. The things that you're going to go through. And the thing is that some people think, well, I'm in transition and it's for show and everything else. For me, it's not a show. It's not something I just jump in willy-nilly just because of my friends. No. I didn't actually just go this route basically for the sake of being famous or anything. I did this because I feel this way. I'm not influenced none whatsoever by anybody, actually. I was looking for guidance, and I didn't really have much. This would have been, let's see here, 2003. 2003 would have been, yeah, 2003, I was about like 19 years old, basically. And I really didn't understand my feelings at the time. I did not have somebody to talk to. And it was rather confusing because I tried to ask people about the transitioning process or the what it takes, who to talk to or anything. I didn't really have any clue. I didn't even know at the time basically there were preferred pronouns to use. Nobody let me know about that at all. I was like, yeah, some of my friends were really nice at first basically about the whole situation, but when you're on hormone medications and your case is quite severe, you tend to actually get a little more grouchier about the whole situation. You get really upset. You get upset when somebody doesn't actually address you the way that they should have. And you go back home basically emotionally stressed out, or to a shelter, basically, a homeless shelter, and people bash you around because you exist. You may actually have a dick, but it doesn't mean that you want to actually go past, have a, well, penis, my bad. If you go to if you have a penis, basically, it's caused a lot of problems for people. And even though the body parts there, they feel like that they're going to be violated by somebody else. And that was the actual point. That was the problem. Now, the thing is that at the time, basically, in Utah, basically, I was going through a thing called, it was called Operation Rio Grande. Operation Rio Grande was about the time when they started going down hard on, well, they were actually, they were actually looking for ways to help out, I guess you could say. But in some cases, the overworked officers really didn't really have much time off or anything else. Basically, there was a low police force in Salt Lake City at the time, was living there. And I was homeless for over 9 years. And I've been trying to cope with that problem ever since it happened to me, and it's not relatively easy to deal with, basically, when you're actually losing friends to illegal paraphernalia drugs, basically, watching people openly inject themselves with heroin at the time, and also smoke some illegal paraphernalia like meth, which kids actually do get educated about these things. They do get educated about the various sexual things that you shouldn't be actually getting into. And I know that some people are going to wonder, did you have any experience? Yeah, it's not the greatest sexual feeling to have. Not something I really thought of. I don't think about going back to that stuff ever again. And I went through classes basically over it because I don't want to deal with the drug stuff, basically. I didn't get really hooked to them actually at all. I guess you could say that there's certain people out there who get hooked to drugs. My friend Karma she was actually addicted to the drugs, and so was Nick. Nick was addicted to drugs, basically, and it caused them a lot of harm. And I think that the fact is that if I had to think about why it was so bad for them, basically, it had to do with the fact is that, well, under the fact that they were both transitioning and I didn't realize that Nick was transitioning. Nick never really made it clear to me or anything. I had to find out from Crystal, who later down the road, she keeps on changing her name and everything else on me. So I can't really tell, it's like, okay, I get it. You're using it for reasons. And it's understandable. So, in my world, it's mixed racial department, basically. So you can have African Americans, Caucasian European Americans, and you could actually have Mexican Americans, Native Americans, and all sorts of people, basically. And I realized a lot of my friends from that area, basically, I saw on TikTok a lot. And I realized they got deported over to Mexico, where I've got actually family at, basically. My dad actually lives in Mexico. My brother lives in Mexico. My sister-in-law is from Mexico. My two nieces are from Mexico. Were born in Mexico. So I worry about them. And my stepmother basically is from Mexico. My adopted mother, which is African American, and my actual mother is actually a Caucasian European American. So I thought, I usually try to find ways to validate people, basically, in all sorts of life. My foster parents are Navajo, and my friends are Utes. Those are my Native American Indian friends. I've been told, but I have no clue about. And it's kind of really rough to track Cherokee bloodlines and such, so I'm not too absolute for sure about that, But I've got tan skin, basically, that tends to make me wonder how come my skin tans right now, and so it's actually odd for me, basically, and so it's relatively interesting. I get it that some people find it that you're white. Well, the thing is that when it comes to actual blood tracking and DNA tracking situations, it's kind of relatively hard to track those types of individuals and such. We tend to actually have a hard time. We're like the mutt human race, basically. We don't really actually theoretically have an actual area that we belong into, basically. So I'm not actually really 100% like complexionally European, like white skin. I've got tan skin, basically, and my father's actually had some really tan skin, basically, and it reminded me of my foster father, who actually had the same scenario because his mother was actually European American and the father is Native American Indian. So the thing is about what I heard about Cherokees, basically, is that there was a lot of actually mixed breeding, basically. And over time, basically, you have a lot of mixed breed actual bloodlines inside of the actual Cherokees and everything else. So it ratherly makes it relatively complicated because, well, even my friend's hair basically is really jet black and everything else. The skin is actually more of a white toned European color to it. Whereas mine's more of a tan color, basically. I tan a lot, basically, and it tends to actually look a lot more native to me sometimes. So I've never really understood it. So I just thought, okay, well, this is just a perfectly natural thing that's actually taking place, in fact, I think. And so I was like, okay, this is actually something I guess I'm it's normal. But my hair is brown, dark brown, really close to like, tends to get a little darker, basically almost close to a black color. But besides that point, when it comes down to our bodies, basically, you go through a lot of struggling situations and scenarios and such. In my case, that's how it happens to be. Basically, I get frustrated and I'd start falling apart to pieces the very next minute and start breaking down because of how the world has been these days lately. And I've noticed some people basically suffering right now. A lot of people go out there and they tend to try to entertain people and everything else. The thing is that we tend to forget that when we're actually entertaining, we tend to forget that the fact is that who's around us, basically. We're not that far off apart from each other, actually, at all. We are not different from each other. We're just actually, we have religious viewpoints that actually have caused us a lot of problems. Mine just actually happens to be centered around Asian aspects and such. I tend to drift towards Asian, Native American belief systems and such, where I do believe in the fact that people do get reincarnated, and I do believe that people do actually, there exists actually multiple actual superior powers out there. In some cases, people address them as elders. In some cases, people actually address them as Lord, God, and Holy Ghost. And the Holy Ghost being a non-form, non-gender actual being and such. The being does not actually have a body, is technically how it was taught to me when I was in Sunday school in the Mormon church. In the Mormon church, we call it a ward, basically is what it's called. And so you would actually talk about the ward you're in. And we'd actually talk about the ward. And one of the things that was fascinating about that is that certain people found it really something that was like common grounds that they could talk about. In some cases, the kids would talk about going out hunting, and my mother never liked the act of violence or going out there with guns or anything else. She would refuse to go out there with weapons or of any sort, basically. I grew up where the fact is that even the sight of actually having a cross in your hand was bad. That was bad. That was like really bad to a Mormon, basically, that if you're holding a cross, basically, you're saying it's okay to accept that, you know, when somebody returns, they want to be reminded about their death. And it turns out rather awful. Now, I can actually accept the Mormons for that reason, but the one thing is that I cannot really, well, the real reason that I can't accept my own religion at all anymore, at all, I actually left it. I asked for an excommunication from the church, a removal from the church. So I no longer actually belong to the Church of Latter-day Saints, the people that you call Mormons. Now, even before that, there's the FLDS as well, which practice polygamy. And one of my friends, her father actually had at least three other concubines. Is it the way that it's the way it was put basically to me? In other words, four wives basically. He would actually have to take care of basically. So one day he could be spending time with one wife and spending time with another wife. And depending on the day, basically, it was dependent on those actual times that he had to have to spend with one of the girls. The thing is that with poly relationships and such, it's outlawed. And it's illegal. Well, we actually had one that had at least 80 wives, and he was arrested. Now, back then, the reason why it happened, why polygamy actually even happened in the first place, was because they needed, girls didn't really have a guy in their life. And the Mormons had a strong belief that giving birth to kids basically was necessary. And so you'd have one guy who could be tied in with at least 4 or more girls at the same time, and they could all be getting pregnant from him basically. And this is not too far off from real life situations and such. Inside of the animal kingdom, we actually have apes, and the practice of apes, like gorillas and such, they tend to actually work in packs of things and such, and they have one silverback of the actual group. That acting silverback would be the group's leader, and that silverback would also be the one who mated with the females and gave them birth, gave them kin, basically, future ape offsprings and such, gorilla offspring. Now, if there was a male in the group, then later down the road, theoretically, they'd actually have to venture out on their own and start up their own actual group and be their own leader amongst the females that they actually have to be around with. In life, that is not a problem at all. But when it comes to the human species, well, the problem is that when you actually have people inbreeding, and when you're inbreeding, that causes a lot of problems, birth defects, and issues and such. So yet again, a better way to actually control that problem was to put a ban to the breeding techniques, so that it would technically feel less actually problematic, that we'd actually have less mental illnesses showing up throughout the world, basically. Even though it's been displayed multiple occasions with various sexual situations back in the European times. Now, it came about because of the rulers, basically. They could be emperors or lords or governors, and governesses and such or so. And they could be actually trying to keep within the wealthy line. They always surmised that their actual lineage was actually the right lineage to actually be breeding with, basically. Now, the fact is that Adam and Eve, or the many various sexual different ways of how the name's pronounced, depending on where you're from, or or the stories that you heard made the difference of things and such. And everybody tends to think differently. Japanese or Chinese, basically, for instance, could have influences of Taoism or Hindu or Christianity and such. All these religious influences, and yet, or Shinto, and the list just keeps on going on and on. There might be some unknown actual religious ceremonies and everything else that go on. Even to this very day, we keep on looking at people who are in tribal situations and tend to look at them and wonder why their actual situation was the way it was, basically. We actually did a lot of investigating into their livelihood, basically, and the symbology behind their reasoning, basically. In some cases, the thing is that they were so wrapped up with the way that they wanted to work with things and such. They wanted to be a ruler all over the people, basically. They didn't want to actually have certain things. Some people theoretically believed that being out in the wild was more important than anything else, and they felt like, well, the world could handle that, and there was less complications. And so the thing is that even though you say that you don't do certain things or you do certain things, there is that actual situation where people have done advanced actual thinking and such. And the Great Library is a great example of that, where we've actually caused that actual idea where the actual Great Library has actually been rather interesting for us. And the thing is that the more times that we actually track down through the actual various religions that were there, basically, or what we could get for information, isn't always absolute, basically. You'd have to actually subjectively be open-minded for everything that actually takes place. Which, in one case, we did actually have a Mormon that decided that they were going to go to Egypt and do work on the actual tombs and such. Well, he actually started blowing up on TikTok and causing mass hysteria again. This was trying to find some sort of validation for the Mormon church. Well, he was going about it the wrong way. I'm sorry to say this, okay? The thing is that even as a 6-year-old kid, and seeing all those hieroglyphs and everything else, I was like, that's Osiris, and I was announcing all the actual gods that were there in that picture, basically. And that was supposed to be baptism. Well, that was supposed to be the setting period, basically, in the Book of the Dead, basically, to actually account for what actually took place. It was later down the road that it was discovered that Joseph Smith had actually purchased with money that was acquired by the rest of the actual fellow Mormons and such, and to buy the sexual piece of Book of the Dead. Well, the thing is that that's fascinating about that situation is that when you're talking about the 1800s or 1890s and such, about around the cowboy times, they would be making sales even into the 1900s, basically. And this was sales on things that nobody understood how to actually decipher at the time. And it was rather complicated. Well, just like a character inside of the Marvel universe, Tony Stark's father, basically. I don't actually have the technology right now, but you actually have the technology right now, son. And the same goes for us. We don't actually have the technology right now. You actually have a lot of worries and such. You think things are going to happen a certain way, but it's not like everybody theoretically wants to jump right on in and dive in there. And they just want to actually obliterate the human race and adopt them into a mainframe circuitry and such. Yes, I can gather that the fact is that a lot of people love to find assimilation, basically, I think is what the word is for it, basically. And to become part of the matrix scenarios and such, where their bodies are actually kept cased inside of a feeding environment. Now, there might be a case where the actual being actually gets to a point and then they have to drop off the being. But does that actually theoretically says that you cannot actually theoretically just vouch the fact is that the human being cannot be reincarnated at all, basically? Because actually, if you watch the Animatrix, it goes into talking also about the reincarnation, which nobody apparently addresses. I guess it's just because, it's invalid to use, and so people like to say that, well, this has got to be Christianity and everything else. Well, it just so happens that there's a cis male and a cis female that just actually happen to be thoroughly attracted to each other. And that's fine. The point is that even when we're actually considering the fact that, of gender association and gender ideology and such, we need to keep in mind that these actual people basically are theoretically telling a story, basically. The stories that they've been doing, alternating it basically throughout the years. And the thing is, the aspects of the gods and such keep on actually taking various different roles, but we can't really actually analyze the fact of just stating outright that a dragon's a spaceship. You're just actually sitting there thinking that, well, aerodynamics actually does not actually account for this idea. Well, the thing is that think of a hot air balloon, okay? And think about it if your hot air balloon was filled with gases and such. And just actually think about it this way, basically. And think about a living creature, basically, that can fly around and everything else. Looks like they're floating around in the sky, basically. Now, take into account they also eat minerals and such. And the minerals actually help them to go from one place to the next. Well, the thing is that it's like actually debated that that's not right, that's not physically right. Well, yet again, what science has not done is objectively look at it appropriately, basically. And we're not theoretically thinking of it at the rate of what it's like for, say, a bird to fly. So you say that you can't really fly, but the case is not true. Yet you might argue the fact that that is falsified. And it's inadequate to be even bringing up such an unfathomable idea. The thing is that also we cannot actually answer for the fact is that there's actual dimensional situations and such. And that does not actually exclude us from understanding how we go from one place to the next. What we don't have is answers. We don't really have answers for why it actually happens. We just actually surmise from the actual beings that actually we know about that exist. I think that's a good start where to state, where you're gonna say to them basically, well, I know that you exist out there, and I know that you've actually been doing certain specific things, but are these people really teaching your true word or your true philosophy, or are they really wrong about how you are basically as a person? Nobody really knows what they're like actually. If they talk to them, meet them, they create very vast stories about them and everything else. And it's rather confusing, The thing is that when you think about it, you're talking about the species. The human species are an evolution situation, and doesn't actually exclude the fact that they don't actually exist in various forms and such. It doesn't exclude the fact that they could be energy like scenarios and such. But such things, basically, that people can actually surmise a lot of things, a lot of ideas. Even they can make mistakes too. They aren't perfect, you're not perfect, I'm not perfect. But what is known is the problems that exist right now. We don't have all the answers about what's going on, okay? We just know that there's a lot of actual people actually stating that they're hiding stuff. And people want answers. Well, then you actually have situations where you've got the people who go out there and post up a sign that believe in the existence of intelligent species that are really high of the mind, basically, and highly intellectuals. And the thing is that they're probably just trying to get used to the idea of finding out the appropriate times and everything else to address the humans and such. And it might not be ready, basically. It's a stepping stone process, basically. Everybody's actually stepping towards things that they want to do. They want to get to know the world, and yet the fact is that even though we stated we gave ourselves at least at 2009 that we were going to go to Mars and everything else. But the thing is that even then, our radio technology and everything else, and getting back and forth signals from our actual robots, it takes a bit of time for that information to travel back to us. And that's a rather tricky process to do. Just to actually get the actual information to travel back and forth from so many light years away from us is amazing enough as it is. And if you think about it, you're sending actual radio waves out there basically to connect with the actual bots out there and everything else. And it's taking an immense amount of time basically to get things under control, basically. Even though that 2012 we wanted to actually go to Mars, basically, but that didn't happen yet. The thing is that people have created stories where going to Mars was an actual situation because of Earth falling apart. People talking about jumping from one planet to the next planet and everything else is perfect there and such. And then there's terraforming, and there's actually various things that people want to do. We don't know the answers to everything, but one thing we should know is that even as human beings, we're not far from each other. We're fairly actually interested in learning about our world. Just because we say 666 just means that the fact is that it's a celebration to Ozzy, who passed away. And the thing is that, how do I view that? I just say, you know what? I have no clue what's going to happen, but I can surmise the ideas that I could actually think about that would actually take place for Ozzy. And Ozzy was an actual daredevil of a being and such. I mean, to get rabies on stage because you bit the head off of a live bat and everything else, and it got you so much attention that you went to the hospital the very next minute, and you're going to there because you actually did something without even realizing it. Well, yeah, you could do some really gnarly stuff when you're not really thinking too hard about things and such, and you can get really caught up in the moment with the fans and such, and you would mistakenly make the same mistake and do what Ozzy did. It just depends on you, on whether or not you realize what you're doing while you're up on stage. And certain actual accounts where certain people have actually made mistakes, a lot of them. I mean, I granted that, if you're doing something repetitively, then there's a bad reason behind it. And it means that you actually have no sympathy for the reason of what you're causing. And so that actually causes a lot of problems. See, the thing is that when we get to the point where we're talking about things in psychology, like sex offenders and murderers and such, we're talking about somebody who has an obsession with their emotions, and they absolutely need to fulfill those emotions. They absolutely need the validation for existence in that department. And they feel that it's all right, and they haven't been taught the rights and wrongs, and they just have actually been acknowledging it as perfectly fine, and I'm not wrong, you're wrong type scenarios. And so the thing is that, the whole lot of the whole situation is that a lot of people keep on saying things about themselves. And they get relatively upset, and some people don't really understand what it means to use specific words. They don't understand why they're used in the first place, basically. Well, we use those words because it meant something back then. We used them because they meant very sexual things in life. And in the 1920s, basically, gay meant happy, that you're happy. You're a happy person. You're a happy person, and it was a short 3-letter word that you could say every time. And in the West Side Story, it was actually talked about a lot. Now, I'm not going to get access either. Just as a heads up here, there are certain films that actually did get eaten up by an acid inside the actual films, while there was Save Our Films and such. And during that time period, while we were attempting to save films, there were films that were destroyed. They were destroyed from an corrosive acid that was actually used during development, basically. So we've lost some stuff, but that's just part of life. You might actually keep something, you might have something, you might not. Even as a creator, I don't know where some of the things I have basically anymore are going to be at anymore. I mean, I just gotta keep on realizing that, just push on forward. Push on forward and, keep a happy smile about the whole process, basically. And don't really get overworked by the whole idea that that I needed to actually keep those actual specifics there. I get a lot of people love to divide up categories and everything else, and love to segregate their whole entire scenario and everything else. And it's all because they're trying to engage various different audiences and such. Some people don't want to sit here for a boring lecture. Yet, here I am doing this number right now. And honestly, I know that a lot of people get really bored having to sit there and listen, and everything else. No, I'm not listening to this. This is actually totally conundrum. No. So, I granted that to some people out there. I'm happy for you that you're able to actually have fun. And I get it that, that we're in a rough situation right now. A lot of you have been relatively helpful in my life. I want to thank you, wherever you're at. You're very respected, and you've given me feelings to go on, basically. And even though you might be somebody who's going to be famous later down the road, I'm still happy. I'm still happy for you. I'm still actually happy for you. It doesn't matter where I'm at, whose team I'm rooting for. I love each and everybody respectively. When it comes to a game, it's a fair game of competition to see who the better player is in the game. And should be. Nonetheless, anything else, it should be an actual dictated by the feeling of the actual group. Now, yeah, I cannot argue with the fact that, somebody might actually go out there and say that their coin toss is going to be the dictating point. Well, because somebody actually gets the ball and somebody else doesn't. But the odds are still in such a way that, even the players have actually got to realize too as well. If you can't follow through with your commands and such, how are you going to actually execute a good game? And are you going to use up a whole lot of your energy? Did you train to be more endurance? Did you spend time with your endurance levels and such? No? Think about it that way, basically. If you spent time with your endurance, if whether or not your endurance levels were actually done. That is a question that whether or not you've actually spent time doing, basically. If you spent time actually spending on endurance situations and such, I congratulate you and everything else. And in some cases, people call this podcasting or whatever. I don't know. I'm just actually, just like saying, well, why not have a fun little conversation and everything else? That somebody can go out there and just, look at it, basically. And see what actually takes place, basically. Because our world is vast. We're all around this world. Good and evil. Good and bad. We're whatever, to some people. Whatever, The thing is that right now, I'm technically called a demon. And so I'm not going to be able to escape that fact because apparently to Christianity and not towards the African Americans, because this actually has a lot to do with what does not fit within Christianity itself. Because whatever they have a problem with, they always have a problem with somebody who doesn't fit in with their beliefs And that's where the problem lies at. The problem lies at is that the fact is that they know they're losing control. They knew ever since 2019 they were losing all the control they could ever grasp at. They knew that their lives are being actually stripped apart right before their eyes. And you think about it, if you've been a person basically who's been doing one life for too long, and suddenly everything's changing ever since 2019, all brought on by disease. And then you're going through all the stages of what they called, that they stated would actually happen. Well, the thing is that I don't think it really technically takes a wise person to realize that that's actually theoretically possible for it to happen, but it doesn't state that that's the absolute way of life. It's not actually how it works out. And certain people will love to claim they're Jesus Christ. I don't want to even claim that I'm any of these people out there, okay? They are them. I am me. I am Ryuki. And that's all I'll ever be. They are special. In their history, in their time period, if they're here right now, well, maybe we know that they're doing things, and maybe we don't know. Who knows? I don't know. I'm not going to actually know exactly who's doing what. And yeah, you may think that you're this person. You may think you're that person, but you said that you wanted to actually jump in and dive in and find those people, those superior powers. What if those superior powers can't even cast spells like you imagine under certain circumstances? Maybe there's a set of rules. Maybe the actual situation has changed. Who knows what the valid reasons are behind it? I mean, I acknowledge things, which is where I get the pagan ideas. That's what I do. I acknowledge their existence as a kind gesture, you know, because for some reason somebody existed out there. Whether or not they were existing out there for those various reasons, according to somebody's books that got rewritten over and over again, and probably misspelled, misinterpreted. They bought fancy stuff. Like, that's not the right way to do things. It's horribly wrong. You should have been helping people, not actually trying to degrade them. I mean, yeah, I can understand that, you know, if it comes down to, you know, age appropriation and sex at an appropriate age and doing things at an appropriate age, that is actually valid, okay? It is very valid. Now, some people actually tend to actually get off to the sexual tangent, basically. There is a thing that people will sit there and say, the birds and the bees, the coconuts and this and that, all blah, 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 blah. Well, the kids actually look at you and like, what are you talking about? You know, the thing is that in kindergarten comp, the little boy was about like 3 years old, and 5 years old. It's in kindergarten. This 5-year-old kid states out loud, boys have a penis, girls have a vagina. He was taught that that's the actual mechanical functions that the actual humans have. And it's not invalid to say these things. It's medically necessary to say these things because in order to describe certain things of the body, basically, you have to actually talk about the human anatomy. And under educational reasons, that means that if I'm here educating you about those reasons, then that's what I'm doing. Okay? You have the choice to leave, and you have the choice to get up and go, and everything else. I have the choice to forewarn you about these things because of your religious reasons. If religion is going to guard you away from the idea of actually understanding about human anatomy, which I'm sorry, you're failing at, you are sorely failing, very much so, and you're not actually validating the beauty of his works. According to your book, his works. His works, you're not validating. You're not validating his actual work. So, you're just acknowledging him personally. On top of that, you bought unnecessary items. And on top of that, you caused a lot more harm than good. I think that, if I was actually Jesus Christ, I would be in there, theoretically, bashing up the vehicles or something else. I'd probably be upset that you did not treat them nicely. That you did not take your kind hearts to go out there and help like you were supposed to. But yet you stood there inside of nicely elaborate buildings and everything else, and you sat there and watched them suffer. That is not right. That is clearly uncalled for. That is not right that you actually did that to them. It's not right that you're actually worshiping a rock in front of us. Because nobody goes out there and sits there at a rock 24/7, kissing the stone every single time, just because they can't understand, they can't go out there and just help. Going out there and help is more valued than you would realize. Going out there and helping people out, that's what's valued a lot more. Going out there and loving each other. You're not just demons, you're not just angels. You're not special. Hell, you even think that the angels were special? They screwed up too. They made mistakes. They're not perfect. Neither are the demons. They all have a choice to actually make if they want it. All you have to do is a good deed. All you have to do is just actually do a single good deed or multiple good deeds. If you do something wrong, dust off yourself. Get back up again. Because if somebody's actually suffering from gender dysphoria, help them out. And if the world is actually losing vegetation and everything else, go out there, plant a tree, plant some plants. Don't let the vegetation just up and disappear. Go out there and do something. But do it with a cause of a kind heart and everything else. That means a lot more. And honestly, it really upsets me that there are people out there who think that, people don't really have a chance or anything else. They keep on painting Lucifer as some being who's got a nasty agenda. And the nasty agenda is to go take our souls. Man, you're really making Lucifer look really bad right now. I'm really feeling upset right now thinking about it. That you're thinking that. And the thing is that Lucifer is surrounded by desire. desires and such. And the ability of desires. Well, think about it. You know, you got a lot of people out there basically with desires and choices and such, and we make various sexual points on actually what we do. You make choices. You all make choices. But the fact is that just to blame one person because you do something wrong, or acknowledge another person for your well-being, of saying that they did it, not you. Stop saying that. If you even remotely understood how much it made somebody upset to hear those words, you would actually stop instantaneously in your tracks. Because Jesus Christ didn't need a vehicle. Jesus Christ walked upon the earth. Theoretically, I'm stuck walking. Go figure. I don't know why. Although I rather love it, basically. I love that idea. I don't even really understand why I'm here in Florida at all. But I'm not calling myself Jesus Christ, so get that out of your heads. Stop it already. Okay? Lucifer is just an actual a ruler. But you know, the thing is that what people don't realize is that maybe the next person that comes around for the second coming is not Jesus Christ. It's his brother. Of all things, Lucifer comes about. And we don't know what the sex of Lucifer is. We don't know the real reason behind why Lucifer does what Lucifer does. What if you actually had the actual situation where you gave desire away to people? What would you do with that? You're talking about, like, say that you desire money, okay? Let's just say this much. You desire a lot of money, and you want fame or money or whatever it is, basically. You desire a whole lot of it. A whole lot of it. Does it really matter to Lucifer? Does Lucifer need to own your soul? No. You felt like you done something bad. But Lucifer just acts as an actual a lighter towards your directions, basically. Gives you actually influences and such. Basically, in a nutshell, Lucifer doesn't actually have a way to create things. What Lucifer actually has is the actual power to actually influence through desire. And through desire, that is a very, very strong emotion that people have. What they desire, what they want. To give them what they want. To allow them to actually succeed in what they want. But there's a fine line to what it is that you can do. That desire actually has to be for good, not for evil purposes. And the thing is that if you think about it, Lucifer got cast down here to Earth. And boy, is that a fun ride. Oof. Thinking about it. Ooh, that hurts. And you smack against the wall. You smack against this ground. Smack, 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 all the way down. and you're like thinking, this really freaking hurts, and everything else. And take a long trip downwards, boom, and everything else. And you start rolling off of various different ledges and everything else, and it's like scares the living crud out of you and everything else. You don't have your wings to hold you or anything. You're just actually falling without a parachute. And your body hits the ground, the surface of the earth, and everything else. And it's like, why? You know? Every 1,000 years, Lucifer gets sealed up. Every 1,000 years, well, every 100 years basically, which is a human lifespan, Lucifer is actually set to roam the world. Okay? So it just so happens to be Lucifer is allowed to roam the world. Well, how many different actual situations has Lucifer took on? Well, Lucifer's to the point where Lucifer doesn't actually even theoretically have an actual sex, a gender of any sorts. Lucifer doesn't even have a gender, none whatsoever, actually. Theoretically speaking. Lucifer just actually happens to be, I guess you could say, a hermaphrodite, futunare, in certain places, basically. I think that there's a lot of words that, even I can go through a list or so, but that's not the point here, okay? The thing is that you actually have to describe what it means to have male testicles and female reproductive organs and such. And the thing is that I love what the Japanese came up with. Just actually the fact that the angel actually, having both body parts and everything else. Go you guys! You're so awesome! And everything else. That's cool. And honestly, or gals, or whatever you are, I don't know. All I know is that that's awesome. Honestly, it's actually validating for people. Basically, it's really nice. Actually, Battle of the Gods. That was really funny. That was a really funny anime. That was hilarious. I mean, yeah. I mean, they did actually incorporate Adam into there. But, there's other candidates, key candidates, that are not actually there or existing right now. Like, say, Jesus Christ, for instance. Or is Jesus Christ just actually Zeus there, Who knows? Lucifer could be known as Loki. Trickster. Loki is actually a shapeshifter. Can take shape of any actual form or anything else. Take on the form of a fox, take on the form of many things. And the thing is that however we view the way that we've either been robbed or treated wrong or unfairly, whatever the case is, no one side is actually the right side. Okay? Nobody's in the right. Plus, if I actually had to say, I don't think that Loki would be happy to fight for Odin in the first place. For all intentions purposely, I can't even imagine why that even remotely is happening. I don't even know why that that character is actually remotely fighting for Odin. He happens to ride around on a horse. Loki's offspring. For all the unfathomable choices you could actually choose to have done right now, you could be riding around on that thing right now. Oh well. It is actually Loki's kid. Although it was a rather uncomfortable experience, according for Loki. It was a rather really uncomfortable experience just to actually be, had a sexually encounter with an animal, per se a stallion at the time. Thoughts of that actually gives me shivers up my spine, basically thinking about it. I mean, if you think about it, that's a rather very big penis on a horse, and that really causes me even problems. Just even thinking about it. Even though we're watching guys actually stick their heads up into crevices inside the female, it's almost like opening up a gaping hole. Yippee! Oh, you're fun. Like, are you breathing in there? Did you take some sort of thing that you can actually breathe underneath it in there? Oh my gosh. Any rate, basically, it's funny. It's crazy. The many ways that human beings will actually come up with something just to create a story. And they'll sit there and embellish upon it, basically. And people will simply sit there and think that all of the stories have to be rooted around something mythical, basically. Some mythical being is actually having these problems. Well, the thing is that, yeah, I would say that dragons exist. Not in the way of spaceships. I mean, yeah, spaceships are a relatively nice way of saying things, but they're not a way to say dragon. Dragons actually have helium inside their bodies, and that actually, and their bodies are light, and that their tails can move around. Well, imagine what it would be like if you could just actually swim in the air, basically. Instead of just actually swimming in the ocean, you're actually able to swim in the air and such. Say that you can actually shift that actual air current around, basically. A dragon can actually whip its tail back and forth and everything else. Give lift and push and everything else. Their muscles in their tails are relatively really strong and everything else. And they're able to switch it around, just like birds actually flapping their wings. And it gives actual lift and movement. So, how would a dragon actually decrease the actual amount? Well, think about it. Just like your hot air balloons, you can actually decrease things. So could a dragon. All they have to do is expel a bit of the actual helium inside their bodies, and they're able to land down on the ground and everything else. It's not magic. I mean, why can't you even think about that? I mean, if you think about it, the bone structures and such and everything else. Theoretically, bird-like scenario, basically. Lighter than a feather scenario, basically. But in a massive form. Could a horse do the same thing? Yeah. Any animal can do the same thing. It's just not known to you how to do so yet. You don't know how to do it yet because it's so scientifically advanced that you don't understand yet. You're still scratching your heads trying to figure out how to get things accomplished. And you're trying to come up with various actual points about why that a lot of this stuff actually happens. Well, the thing is that reality actually has rules, okay? And even those rules cannot be broken. Even that the fact is that there are certain circumstances where you're able to do certain things in life. Alright? Although I rather found it funny that 5 feet away from me, I was able to see stinking lightning shock the ground. Well, I don't think that mechanical instruments are going to add for the character's face that I had to see, but oh well. I can't really validate it, okay? And therefore, that ends the whole entire situation of discussing that. That whole entire point there. We're talking about electrical energy, basically. Well, electrical energy actually happens to flow. And if the person wants to form their image in certain things, they could, by connecting their energy around certain molecules and such, that their bodies can take shape. Oh geez, wouldn't you actually believe that? No. There would be millions of excuses for that reason. For that thing not to even really exist. Could you even remotely explain, to yourselves, basically, why the, units of measurement have always existed with you? Units of actual mathematics that actually drove you to understanding the world around you. You think that the actual superior powers didn't even understand those things? They come back here and it's like, actually, wow, welcome to Wonderland again. Oh wow, I haven't met you before in such a long time. Well, it's quite a ravishing moment here, and yet... Wait, aren't you one of the siblings I know about? Oh, crumbs. And then on top of that, I love that phrase. Thank you very much from Hell of a Boss. I believe that would have been quoted from... oh, bother. I can't think of who it is. Oh, Winnie the Pooh there. It'll come to me. I have a vivid imagination. So, I tend to remember images, visual images. That's a rather interesting scenario for me. And being able to visually capture those images, but not the names sometimes too as well. But it takes a while for me to go through all that right now, because you'd have to think about what it was that you're thinking about, basically. And so, even you got the fantastic Blitzo. Oh wait, it's Blitz. The O is silent. Oh rats, I'm gonna get pounded for that. Oh no, I'm in trouble. Okay. Blitz is gonna be mad at me now. Oh shoot. Oh bro. Oh no. Okay. Oh, of all the people there at that, working on the project and everything else, I see the connections. Yes, I do very much actually see the connections. I actually see exactly who it is in there. Oh boy, that's actually really interesting too. Even though Brandon Rogers, well, even though I keep on actually having the Brandon Rangers come into play, I think I theoretically got to see Stolas. Oh, that was rather interesting. Stolas, of all things. I thought that was a rather interesting character. I'd say he must actually be a really nice person. And you know what? I congratulate Blitz and Stolas on one hell of a happy relationship. And the other team members, I don't really understand where all that whole fancy idea goes through your heads and everything else. I mean, yeah, I can understand that, one part looks like a father figure situation. Father who's an entertainer, and probably a fantastic entertainer at doing juggling and doing all sorts of things. Who knows? I don't know. Maybe it's like a mixed match, and you just take one piece and this piece, and you just dump them together, and voila! Yeah, Lucifer. Now let's see here with Alistair. Alistair reminds me of a situation based on Alistair Crowley from Diaries of a Madman, from when Ozzy Osbourne remembers or probably recalls Alistair Crowley having a bunch of situations coming about. Well, Alistair Crowley was actually relatively able to, well, even before there was actually films, situations where people did things like films, we had radios. And it's no surprise to me, Alistair was on the radio. And Alistair Crowley was on the radio. They were both actually radio people, basically. Alistair had a strong command of people, while Alistair Crowley had the same scenario, basically. He had somebody along for the ride, and his name was Gerald Gardner. Gerald Gardner would actually be the acting partner inside of Alistair Crowley's actual life. Well, think about it. Husk. Isn't that actually interesting that Husk would be Gerald Gardner and such? Wouldn't that be funny if that's the case? Who knows? I don't know. It's a rather fun, interesting scenario to get to know. We get to actually enjoy something rather interesting, You get to actually see the actual things happen right before your eyes. I have never had so much fun while I was transitioning than that time. Thanks to that whole entire team working on that. I believe I don't know whether or not the studio is called Busy Pop or not. I'm not sure. I don't know what the studio is called. If it's just Busy Pop, I guess, or Spindle Horse or something. I don't know. Lots of actually incredible people there. Awesome. Really awesome people. I lived in California, and I didn't live in the southern states. That actual accent only comes about in me from the fact that I actually, my childhood growing up is Jim Burney, who played Ernest. You know what I mean? And talked a lot about, back then, that was a magical time of my life. Jim Burney actually was a relatively really great person. Another candidate I loved a lot, okay? Growing up, I loved Gambit. So loved Gambit, and they got a really cutie in there for Gambit. Oh my goodness sakes. Can we actually Check out those biceps. Oh my gosh. Oh, so cute. And that accent is so much like Gambit. Oh, it's so cute. I love that actual accent and everything else. And wow, I really would love to see what Rogue would be like. Oh my gosh, that's gonna be interesting. Having Rogue actually played by somebody who actually closely resembles that time period and such. Granted, I can understand that Jim Carrey and Robin Williams did actually star in series that were TV series like Living Color and probably Meet the Browns and so many things basically were doing acting with basically. They were round African Americans. Okay? Well, you're a Canadian, coming on over. You come on over here, basically, and you endeavor on the American dream, which a lot of people who migrate here to America for. Because why not? The real reason that you come here to America in the first place is that you had a dream that you wanted to do something incredible with your lives. It didn't have to be being Spider-Man himself or her, basically, or whatever Spider-Man is, basically gender-wise. It doesn't matter. What matters is the fact is it was fun. I got a friend in Mexico, Juan. Juan is actually he's really fun. He is a really fun person. It's just actually the fact is that life actually served really the worst set of situations and lemons and such in the deal. That it caused so many problems for Juan. And he was always really nice. But yet, the thing is that life never offers a person an opportunity to be able to live. And it didn't offer my dear friend Juan that opportunity to live. He was married here in America, and he came here for an American reason. And he was happily fine. Everything was fine. And some people argue the fact is that, well, they came here for the wrong reasons. Well, does that mean that you're going to actually start deporting people for the wrong reasons? You know, the thing is that, that even though Juan came over here and tried to make a life, so many people do. And so many are trying to make a life here. But yet the opportunities aren't there so easily. So what do you have to do? Basically, you have to turn to bad choices. It happens. It happens to the good. It happens to the bad. It happens to everybody. People make horrible choices and such in life. And they did it on purposely for a reason. Because they were given no other option. And the Mormons are a poor excuse of an example of situations and such. The Church of Latter-day Saints didn't really give people a chance to be who they are according to their own faith. Even though you actually still had a system to yet alone caused problems with. You built many churches across the world, many temples across the world. And you're still causing problems. You're still saying that everybody actually has to be because what your book actually was written about, basically by somebody who didn't understand how to decipher properly, I'm sorry, or stole information? Are we not even actually remotely even talking about the stuff that you stole from a poor person who wrote a book back then? No, we're not going to acknowledge that there is an author, but we theoretically believe it's called the Brass Plates. Well, has anybody got a vast imagination where they actually said, oh, well, brass is an actual metal, and it was used for making various actual tools, so everybody knows what the metal brass looks like. It's a valid point, and if brass plates do exist, well, they do exist to them. And they theoretically believe that what doesn't actually exist in Joseph Smith's hands isn't there anymore. Who knows? Maybe the author written the book on brass plates. Well, think about it. If you were going to a printing press and you actually had to have your book printed, what would you put your stuff on? Oh wait, a brass plate. Oh my. And if those actual plates are under earth right now, let's do a bit of science there. Maybe it's corroding away. And it corroded away over the years and nobody dared to look. And it's gone. No longer can it be validated. Maybe it got tossed in some fire, melted down, and scrapped. Have you ever thought of it that way? Maybe it's a big old chunk of metal basically by now that got sold off. It's easy for somebody to melt the metal basically down and use it for something else. Because people can actually take metals, melt them down, sell it off, and the materials are gone. The words that the person wrote down on a book are gone. Well, what would happen if somebody found the actual author's diary? Oops! The person's diary exposes the book. Oh no. But there's no way to validate the reasoning behind it. Okay then, fine. But what if that author came back here again? Oh, that's a possibility, probably, Who knows? Maybe they remember, maybe they don't. Who knows? I don't know. A lot of people remember certain things, and some people remember a long, vast lifetime and everything else. And you could sit there and say all you want about how somebody did something. Well, the thing is that time takes away a lot of stuff. Over time, we lose things. But that doesn't actually keep us from actually advancing, moving forward, But yet, there are people out there still scared to bitsies. They'll fall to pieces and everything else. And they'll think that, oh no, we're going to bring back this monster. Well, what if that monster actually exists? And they're theoretically right here, right now with you. Who knows? I don't know. I mean, there are countless times where even the Jewish mystics make mistakes. And people have brought forth the information. The countless mistakes that were made about each individual. The the thing is that none of the superior powers are impressive. They just actually had a life. And they kept on reliving and reliving, and then you put a locking door and key on the actual life expectancies and such. Maybe the fact is that, while you're saying about like choice and everything else and what type of gender, what type of this, what type of that, who knows? Sun Wukong, an ape, given everlasting life. You know what? What if Sun Wukong was Adam? That's kind of rather interesting. Isn't it? Basically. So would that actually make you Sun Wukong's offspring? That's kind of interesting too. The monkey, who's also known as a trickster too as well, who's able to make clones of themselves. This says Sun Wukong doesn't actually have the power to actually morph into females and such, or morph into males. It's unknown to you. None of us know. We have stories, accounting stories, basically. Stories that people state all over the neighborhood, stating various stories and such. Who knows what's really actually facts? All we know is that for a fact is that we exist here. For some reason, we don't have the answers for it. We're going to probably get to that point somewhere along the way. Wouldn't it be nice that some of our ancestors came back to help us out? Wouldn't that be nice? According to your books, you stated that the beings were supposed to return according to the actual situation. Maybe the fact is that when somebody's so wise, they don't really understand everything themselves either. And it doesn't actually say that we're just scattered across the airs and everything else. And our bodies are in multiple dimensions and everything else. We all exist in various different ways and shapes and forms, basically. We can be in different various realities and such. One life actually living one life, another life living this life, another life living that life. What it really stands for is that each one of us actually tells a very different story. And some of us have actually kept hidden for years. For a long time, basically, because of all the witch trials and such. And we've actually had many years of problems and such over it. But chance counters that we actually meet the people that need that actual guidance. Well, these people have never actually had like snazzy, fancy buildings or anything else. They had various practices that allowed them to actually enact upon. They were able to actually say, well, this actually happened. And that is the reason why this is taking place. Well, if we take into account all the things that have been happening lately, I think that the fact is that Trump, who thinks, one thing and thinks another thing, who knows? We all have special things, special ways to actually do things. And we're all special in a way that we can actually do things and such. We can actually take care of problems and such. Just actually getting there to that point without scared human being department. Just because your religion actually practices idea for who knows how long, it doesn't always state that It's the absolute way. You may be Chinese, you may be Japanese, you may be Korean, you may be this, you may be that. Whatever. You're here for a purpose. You all have pieces to the puzzle. And wouldn't it be nice if you brought those pieces together and all realized the whole entire time that you were withholding knowledge that was dear to everybody else? Knowledge they didn't know, knowledge they didn't understand. Maybe there's unknown knowledge that actually hasn't been brought forth. Maybe some of you feel that the things aren't ready, basically. And you think that, no, this group isn't ready for that. Well, we had to take a chance. We had to take a chance on the fact that you're going to make mistakes. And who knows what Albert Einstein thought, what any of them thought, basically. All they thought is that in order for technology to progress, we need to advance. We need to actually propel forward. This all needs to end. This all needs to stop. It's high time that we started validating each other for who we are. And it's high time that we didn't actually sit there and say that, well, I'm worried about not being able to get out there to the people. I'm using a cheesy situation right now with the worst probably technology. And who knows? You're in India and you think it's actually really hot stuff to actually sit there and start making people upset. Wouldn't you be surprised if your partner is here in America right now and would have loved to have been with you? Oh wait, is it just India? Oh wait, it could be anywhere in the world. And what are you doing right now? Making matters worse? Just because your jobs are being taken away because of robotics, my jobs are being taken away. I am no longer going to be validated for being a mechanical, lean-minded, and problem solver. Okay? It's all going to change. And the thing is that we need to get along with each other. It doesn't matter if we're trans or not, cisgender or not, or whatever type of gender is out there. It doesn't matter. You're still validated. And the thing is that we need to realize that even in psychology, we gotta realize that the fact is that even human beings have problems. And it's scientifically proven that people who suffer the actual problem need the help. Whereas the people who are doing this for fame points and such, and coming into the actual situation just for the wrong reasons, well, maybe you didn't have somebody who's there to actually tell you how to actually act upon that. I went through a therapist. I talked to my therapist. I've actually talked to many psychologists and therapists and psychiatrists and such, counselors and everything else. None of the mental medications ever helped. They wanted to make me a boy, and that didn't work out. I'm still not actually going to feel fine by the fact that, even though somebody tries to force me to be that, it's not going to help, okay? And having some rules set down basically to help people actually make the right decisions isn't a bad thing. Just because you can't go in there and just make the choice to automatically change your sex accordingly doesn't mean that it's actually bad for you. We just need to realize that the fact is that there are times that even for this therapist that they need to actually start analyzing things properly. There are multiple case sexual scenarios basically in multiple areas and such. And if you were a psychologist actually studying in all those fields, it's kind of going to get rather laborious, overwhelming, and everything else, just to try to quote the actual diagnosis of what's taking place. Theoretically, if you're not working as a team together, basically, you're not answering the problems together properly. And you're debating or probably telling somebody else is wrong for various different reasons, and then quoting the fact that they could be actually defending things for the wrong various reasons. It really comes down to the person who's actually suffering, and why aren't we just helping them out, basically giving them the actual shot that they need. You need to be validated for who you are. You're a female? Cool. It's so awesome. As what my friend would say, cool beans, The thing is that it's up to you. It's up to you to make the decision. Because the thing is that you gotta live with the outcome that you make the decision on. I kept on telling my therapist and my psychologist, I don't feel happy with taking the mental medications. It's not going anywhere for me. I'm feeling a lot more better basically when I'm actually taking my hormones. And that's what helps me. I need to come to terms with myself, usually, which actually incorporates the fact that I need to acknowledge that what I'm comfortable with is validating for me. It may not be validating for others, but it's validating for me. And it would have been validating for me when I was a kid. Because I literally stressed out a whole lot more because my hormones weren't really the right thing. And doctors couldn't understand it. So they thought, okay, we'll use a process basically to equalize the actual brain chemistry. And we thought, okay, that'd be the right way to do things, basically. And we thought that would be the right way to get things done. Well, it isn't validating, and there is some points that, even for some people who clearly don't want to actually behave or act a certain way just according to their religion alone, that's baloney. Why are you selling yourself the lie? Why are you telling yourself to accept their ways over what you know is truly is you? Why are you allowing them to dictate you? If you don't feel like you're who you are, then you made the mistake. And it's alright then. Okay? We're trying to technically make it where we can fix those problems right now. We're going to fix you. That's actually how it's going to happen. We're going to make sure that you're able to give birth. Make sure that you're able to give offspring. We're fixing that idea. Is that playing God? No. That's just actually correcting mistakes that were made. that should have been corrected a long time ago. And given the fact that, religion has actually lasted for so long and kept on keeping people from advancing, has caused a lot of problems. Okay? Just because you actually had wars back then doesn't mean that everything actually continues the same way as you planned it to be. You actually chose to actually take things and use them. Okay? You did not return the gift back in certain ways. And somebody else took the gifts and such and used it for their own benefits. And you're not working together, which is a bad thing. It's horrible that you're not actually allowing people to actually be acknowledged for who they are. It's horrible that you're telling me that your scar on your arm, when was your life done? When was your actual operation done? Just think about it. You're talking about an operation that was done so many years ago, and it was done under crappy equipment. But yet, here we have an actor that was actually given the gender operation, and she was alive for it. And now here we have people complaining that they're going to take away the history. Oh boy. Again, another stopper. Everybody's getting tired of it. I'm getting tired of it. It's time for you to stop. You're not the only one here suffering. You're not acknowledging anybody. You're not giving enough attention to their needs. When are you going to go out there and start acknowledging the women who went out there their ways, basically, as nuns, and did something rather special for people? They did it in the name of things of your religion, and honestly, that's got to be the most painful thing to think about, is that they weren't acknowledged at all. They weren't cared about. You acknowledged that you were more important, and you didn't want somebody who was of the opposite gender, who was doing a better job than you, to be validated. Why can't you just be happy for them? They are great at doing what they were doing. Okay? I granted the fact is that we got Trump. Yes. And at the same time, we're griping and complaining about how Trump's doing certain things, enacting certain things and such. Well, we do actually have a thing called the neo-Nazis. It isn't the actual Nazis, it's the neo-Nazis. Neo standing for new. New generation of Nazis. And wherever the neo-Nazi generation came from, it's like actually looking at our ancestry and situations. And maybe kids were actually enthralled by the fact of their parents and their lives and everything else. They like that action and everything else. Well, maybe before they even migrated here, basically, they actually had those problems and everything else. They wanted to acknowledge their great-grandparents and everything else for all the magical stuff that they did. But somebody else decided to remember that the horrors that actually exist at that time. Right now, not everything should be actually acknowledged to be used. And there is going to be a point where even Trump is not going to be going with that idea. Because the fact is that you got to be reasonable. Who wants a long-time dictator which I didn't even know Pelosi was in office so many terms. That's ridiculous. 90 years old. And the Speaker of the White House. That should be not a thing that should happen. That should have never happened at all. You should actually technically be doing the right things and not the wrong things. And here you are, causing more trouble again with that. I guarantee you that this is not going to actually bode well in your favor. You are going to lose everything. You're going to pass away, and the next generation is going to take on. I'm going to pass away, and the next generation is going to take on. And the cycle begins again. But as long as we stand here bickering with each other over our scriptures that, for all we know, were rewritten so many times, it's ridiculous. It's redundant. It is absolutely far out of disarray, basically. It's complete bonkers. It's fouled up. And it isn't acknowledging our reality. Every generation knows this. Everybody knows this. Every little kid here knows that our actual situation here isn't actually the way it's supposed to have been. And we need to stop making these mistakes. We need to evolve and graduate from this actual state of problems here. It's not as we theoretically evolve our being. It's just the fact is that we evolve our scientific efforts. We don't actually stop at one point. We keep going and analyzing things and making sure that our equipment is operating properly. For one reason, the actual electron microscope, what is anybody doing to actually even say anything to the actual people out there? Educate them. Let them know what's actually happening. But even though, keep in mind, there's a lot that they're going to be influenced by. There's a lot that's going to happen. They're all going to actually have influences. And for good reasons. Though you may not look like a rock star or somebody out there jamming on a guitar and everything else, you're a rock star with your minds. A rock star with an incredible knowledge and everything else. An incredible actual responsibility of thought. But do not actually take your stuff into consideration as absolute theory or absolute solutions. It is not absolute. We do not actually stop at one point and everything else. We need to theoretically get to the point where we get people outside of the world and seeing things from outer space. Show people a trip. Find ways to actually correct their bodies so they can actually go out there into space. So they can explore space. We can actually explore the grounds here still. Here in the actual Earth. Earth is still unexplored. We got vast amounts of actual ocean and everything else unexplored. Maybe we got relatives there who want to actually help us right now. And if they're inclined to actually come out of that situation and start helping us right now, you need to stop acting like immature little children, basically. You need to grow up. The life that we're sitting here thinking is going to happen isn't going to be the same thing that we actually imagine it to be. We should not actually give ourselves the credit that the fact is that something cannot be established or acknowledged. Yet we actually go out of our ways to cause more problems. We need to realize that the fact is that even though you think you're really incredible at something, doesn't validate you as the most absolute perfect situation. You are human, you're going to make mistakes. As much as the monks that made mistakes, the fathers that made mistakes, the mothers that made the mistakes, you made mistakes, and you need to actually acknowledge your own mistakes. Accept the fact that you made a mistake and say, you know what? I'm sorry. I'm sorry I promised you this. I'm sorry that you didn't actually get the help that you needed. Because at least my mother actually said that to me. My father, on the other hand, disowned me completely, I guess. From whatever I know, he actually hasn't responded to me ever, okay? I'm fine with him actually having his mind elsewhere, okay? What is rather important is that whatever questions you have or want answers to, ask them. Ask them, and they will be answered. But don't actually take it in as full absolute solutions. And you know what? If my words are too complicated, or too high, or too elaborate, or riddled with words and such, or too hard to understand, maybe somebody will break it down. I mean, most people are familiar with actually taking a banana and sticking a condom on the banana. And the reference to the banana is the reference to your male testicles and male actual reproduction system and such. And maybe you're female, basically. And your female hormones and your female reproduction system and such. Did you know the fact is that once you actually get male testosterone levels and such and everything else, it tends to actually make you aggravated a lot. Maybe you have a higher level of testosterone than normal. Maybe you have a lower testosterone level and have more estrogen levels and such. Those are only two candidates in the actual thing. Take it from me, I'm not the actual clear expert here, but there are more actual hormones I'm having to learn about. And it is a very big time experience and everything else. Yes, your skin does get softer and everything else just because you're transitioning. The thing is that not everything in science is actually known. What will happen, what will take place. But what is known is that the fact is that you're validating your gender. You're validating who you are. Right now, I'm not the richest person to go out there and train my voice right now. To actually get voice training, I have to actually spend money. And what money do I actually have? I have a meager amount of money. Basically, it's more like a monthly salary, monthly allowance. There we go. But it's a monthly amount of money that I get to actually spend, and I only have that for 1 month, and it's gone. Is that a wonderful idea to live with? No. And can I do anything about it right now? No, not really. I can't really do anything about it because honestly, I have a hard time trying to keep my mind under actually focusing on the actual stuff that needs to be accomplished. I get I break down a lot basically. From it's not the fact is that my emotions hormones get out of whack or something else, or get out of shape basically, or well, get depressive, upsetting, or sad, or angry, or happy, or I start thinking that I actually have multiple imaginary friends around me, or I have thoughts of multiple voices being in my head, stop and think about it. If you actually theoretically had imaginary friends, imaginary things and such, well, just imagine if you didn't have any friends around you. Somebody to talk to that had no obligations to actually have a bad day with you, okay? For me, I actually created those things. I acknowledged the things that I made a mistake in, and I correct those problems. I acknowledge they exist, but there's a time they gotta go. And it's gotta end, it's gotta be over with. Whatever happened in the past is done. There's no going back right now. I cannot actually take those moments of life basically back to me again. I cannot take back the problems that have actually occurred to me at the day of my birth. I cannot take back what the superior powers did. According to certain people, that's what they call them. Or if we took this into a scientific account, I cannot actually control what actually biology nature did to me, basically. I cannot actually take that back. But what I can actually try to do is actually tell people about it. From my standpoint of view, I don't validate as a boy. I don't really see myself as a boy, okay? I always validate myself in a feminine scenario, okay? And so what? There's two different physical forms and such. Well, there's also even a third form, one that actually includes both male reproductive parts and female reproductive parts and such. It exists. It happens. It happens. There are some people that are born without any ligaments and such, are born together. And wouldn't it be nice if you can actually allow them to live their lives separately? It might be hard for them to detach, but it would be medically possible to make them themselves. What we're trying to do is actually cure problems that exist. It's called actually Siamese twins, and it's a rare occasion that during childbirth, while in the development in the womb, things got problematic. Maybe the mother didn't really actually adequately was around an actual appropriate environment to give birth or to receive the appropriate treatment. The thing is that even the male partner might actually have problems with their sperm. And their sperm is the problem. Those are actually appropriate words to use to diagnose the actual situation. Okay? And another part that's appropriate to discuss is ejaculation. Ejaculations, the fluids and such that come out of your urine line in your penis. It comes forth out of your penis. It's like two separate way tubes basically crossing roads and such. but they converge into one line area basically. And they have to close off one and open up another valve and such. And that actually injects into the female, like somebody actually taking an actual needle basically, injecting it into an actually open hole inside the actual body basically. And that open hole happens to be called the vaginal area. It's the vaginal the vaginal tube basically. So the penis actually the shaft of the penis actually slides in the female. And the motion from back and forth basically causes actual excitement and such. And at the moment of the peak of excitement, it opens up. It opens up a doorway, basically. And the actual semen actually gets shot up into the female. And in some cases, it goes through into the female and into her ovaries. And into the ovaries, the magic actually happens where the sperm interacts with the eggs, basically. The sperm actually goes into the egg and wiggles its way basically into the egg and goes into the egg and starts maturing into a human being. Over time, through the process of nurturing actual vitamins and food and nutrients and such coming through the mother, she's giving food to her offspring inside of her belly basically. And it's not theoretically impossible for males to give birth. It's just that nobody wants to actually tell the kid that, you know what, I got born from my dad. Has anyone watched Junior? That's when Arnold Schwarzenegger actually plays a male cisgender person who does not have reproductive system, but was injected with an egg into the appropriate cavity. And over time, given hormones and everything else, they were able to bring the egg to term. Now, given the fact that Arnold Schwarzenegger's character was giving a valid reason basically for all the girls that are suffering from being able to give birth. Well, just think about it. What if you were, say, a transgender? You weren't validated as a full female. Well, now we can actually make you completely whole again to the person that you were supposed to be. To make a guy that was a female that wasn't supposed to be a female in the first place, we can actually give them reproductive organs that could actually help them be able to get a girl pregnant. Now, just actually think about that. And what if you're a cisgender male and you're having problems actually trying to give birth? Well, not birth, I meant to say that you were actually not able to actually give, you were not able to actually get a girl pregnant. Then we can actually fix you as well and be able to allow you to get the girl pregnant. Just imagine that there are some girls out here basically who would love to just be there for you. Be for the guy basically. Be there holding, getting held, or being comfort basically. And being on the couch or something basically with them. Enjoying their company. And there are guys out there who enjoy the actual fact of being the protector of her and enjoying her That's not a bad thing. The bad part is that, if you're homosexual, then that's fine. That's all absolutely fine. You want to actually not have to deal with the reproduction department? That's fine. Nobody's actually making you have to actually go give birth all the time. You have the option to go out there and give birth if you want to. You want to take care of a kid? Then great. And it's validating for you. If you want to actually if you want to get a surrogate mother to actually give birth to your child, that's fine too. There's nothing wrong with that. What's wrong is that the fact is that we don't really understand how to be nice to each other. And yet, religion has put a halt on everything, every time throughout the years. It's put a halt on our lives. And it's a fascinating world we live in. And I'm pretty sure that there are some people out there who will break it down in a way that, kids can actually understand. Now, the thing is that one problem I have is that if kids are not validating what is proper and what's improper, and we're scolding the children thoroughly, we're scolding them to the point where they don't actually think they actually have a validating life. They think they have to theoretically be upset at everything in the world, okay? And we shouldn't be upset at everything in the world. It shouldn't be a thing that we're actually constantly upset with everything. So, go out there and validate each other. Because that's exactly what you need to do. You need to stop actually causing grief. Yeah, it's nice fun and games when you're joking around, but it's not fun when you're actually hurting somebody's psychology, basically. That's mental abuse. Mental abuse is when you actually make somebody uncomfortable mentally. And that one is actually 10 times worse than just actually sexually abusing somebody, murdering somebody. At least sometimes, they actually have to go before therapy. But with mental, it's far worse because it tends to actually bring people to suicidal tensions. And if you do not know what your suicidal hotline is, please talk to somebody who does know what your suicidal hotline is and talk to that person. All right? So please go out there, have a good time. Though it may feel like a problem right now, let your senators, your mayors, and your governor know the issues that are happening. But stop trying to tear down other people for wrong reasons. Your church is not the answer. Church should not be involved inside of politics. It should not become part of the actual point of things. And they shouldn't actually be the dictators. They have been causing years and years of hurt. Nobody should be hurting this much from the impractical uses of their religious belief system. I am not saying that you should actually go out there and become an actual atheist or become an actual agnostic or a pagan for that matter. Tell your leaders that they need to change the way that they actually do things. Are you not actually listening to the superior command? Are you acknowledging your own feelings and not theirs? if they're trying to tell you something, then go out there and say that, you know what, I'm sorry. I apologize for all the years of hurt that you've actually had to endure because of us. I'm sorry that you actually had to go through all this painful experiences and such. I'm sorry that we actually halted your scientific discoveries. I'm sorry that we couldn't answer our own superior powers. I'm sorry that, that doesn't actually, we don't know what the real reason is yet. Okay? Even Christ can make mistakes. And wouldn't even realize that, maybe that the thing is it wasn't written the right way. Maybe the interpretation wasn't written properly. When the banishment of a specific group of angels that were deviants vanished to run off of the cliff because after they inhabited some humans' bodies, basically, spiritually. In order to cast them here on earth to correct their ways. If they cannot actually come to terms with themselves right now, they just keep on coming back here again. They keep on coming back here until they can actually understand what they did was wrong. Or we try to figure out what is actually causing them the grief. Maybe it takes an actual other scenario, basically, that we don't really otherworldly responsibility, basically. Maybe you don't really theoretically understand it right now, but it sounds like science fiction. To the point that we're actually having to reincarnate spirits back into their bodies again, so that they can actually find the correct path that they like to be in. And for all you know it, you're actually technically communicating with superior powers without even realizing it. And they may actually be connected telepathically without even realizing it to themselves. We don't know for a fact of what's going on. It's not understood. It's all rooted in our psychology. Our problems are actually rooted in that department. There is unaccessed actual potential inside of our minds that are dormant basically inside of us. And there are reasons why it happens. But sometimes we don't really acknowledge the fact is that all the time that stuff is not completely understood. So when it comes to actually having your opinions and such, just remember that there are people out there who suffer from certain things because you don't understand it all too well. It's not actually stating that you're improper. It's just, think of it this way. You're a guide, basically. And you led a bunch of spirits to the wrong area. And yet somebody else has to come fix your problems because you don't understand what you're doing right now. You've gone completely mad and thought this is the appropriate way to deal with things because you don't understand anything better than this. You needed to be a certain way and you wanted a certain way. And you're not going to actually get it any other way unless you feel like you're going to validate your stupid reasons that don't really even have to be validated in the first place. Break the cycle. Break the trigger. Get it over with. Replace it. Replace it with something good. Replace it with something positive. You know how negativity actually works? It works as an actual counterbalance, so that there's not too much good and there's not too much really ultimately evil stuff. And if you think about it, if you were the governor of, well, the superior power that has to come here to this world every time, you're the rule of Earth, then you need to actually make sure that people are actually understanding where they gotta go. Because this is getting nuts. And if you continue to actually bash somebody for being different than you, then you're not accepting who they are as a person. I have one word to the actual, well, one thing that, well, more than thing, no. I have multiple things to say to the Church of Latter-day Saints. One, you are not absolute in the final decision. I'm not the absolute final decision. Second, the transgenders are valid people. Change your ways right now. As to the others, as I've said before, to the actual Catholics, you are not the ruler of this world. You were supposed to be helping each other out. You are not supposed to be acknowledging that you're Mary or Jesus Christ. That is improper. You are not them. You are not either of those people. You're human beings. You are supposed to be outside, basically, getting more humans to actually exist here. We are supposed to work together, not against each other. Okay? You're not supposed to disacknowledge the fact that you're not going to go out there and have a kid. Having a child is an ultimate big responsibility. A special responsibility by any parent. Is it a special graduation into the next kingdom? No, it's not. There is no this or that or in hell or above this, above that. They're just stations. Stations in life. Progressions of life. Stop decreasing our life. You don't need to go out there and start causing mayhem for everybody else just because you're feeling like you're being more pushed out the world. You're a human being. You're validated. And it doesn't matter what race you are. It doesn't matter what religion you come from. Your elders should be changing their ways right now. And if they're not, and they're trying their very best, it's going to be acknowledged. It's going to be acknowledged that they did the best they could right now to get your attention. If this is not actually enough for you to actually be told any way of shape or form to understand anything about what's going on right now, I do not need a special book or course or anything right now. What we need to do here is actually acknowledge the fact is that the ancient ways were done then. Okay? They're a guide. And humans make mistakes. But we need to realize in human nature that we understand and validate the fact that we exist here. And it's not found in a book. Don't go chasing waterfalls. Listen to the elements around you. See and feel the light. see that the person beside you is suffering. If they need help, your job is to actually try to help out the people who are suffering. When people are not suffering, they're actually making you benefit just as much as themselves. They're going to go out there and they're going to do science work, and they're going to do literature, they're going to do other things that are going to promote better futures in life. They're going to be betterly prepared to want to do things properly. You will get advancements like you never knew before, just because you actually exist in some other place, basically. I know in China or Japan and everything else, and you say that, oh, you got all this technology and everything else. Yay! You know, how are you actually helping the others out? By being a problem? This isn't control. Just because you think you're some superior power doesn't actually give you the right to make everybody else upset. To make them suffer more from actually utilizing their talents and their needs to support you, like Prince John looking for more money. That shouldn't be happening. You need to act like your positive reinforcement situation. You need to go out there and help others. And you need to actually go beyond this point right now. If sex sells, it's not a bad thing. If somebody cannot get an understanding of their sexual environment and such, then you need to educate them. You need to educate them about the appropriate things in terms around their reproduction. Because honestly, I get it. You use your religious books to hide away the problems. And have you even remotely forgotten actually what it means to actually go out there and explore? Some people get hurt. Okay. We need to understand why that actually happens. Well, our partners need to be able to validate they want to actually have sex. Don't force them. Forcing a partner into sex is not a good thing. Most of you make that mistake a lot of times, basically. Some of you tend to acknowledge it as a perfect idea. Just because some little kid actually gives birth to a kid, basically, doesn't mean that you should actually just be going out there continuing the same scenario. She may not actually be ready to actually be able to care for the child, be able to produce the actual reproductive actual stuff. Who knows? I don't know. Has actually scientists actually validated the situation? No. There's no way of actually knowing. And the longer that a female actually sits on her actual situation, the longer she actually has less chance to actually promote, less chance she has of producing offspring. And less chance that she has to understand that she doesn't actually realistically have to be locked in her home. She could theoretically, right now, be teaching like this, in a way. Because I know for a fact that my teacher was actually a cisgender female. She gave birth to a kid. It's validating that she had to be in a hospital environment to give birth. But while she was actually teaching us, her kid was there. In our college. And that's fine. We understand as an adults that we have a reason, a life. Kids are going to grow up. Kids are going to get excited. They're going to want to know more. They're going to do stuff without your consent. They are going to want to explore. And the first thing you should be doing is trying to teach your kids about what's going on with their bodies. Be polite. Be kind. Break it down to them in ways that they can understand. Teach them about the body parts and what they do. That way, then when they go out there, they don't actually make the same mistakes. They don't actually hurt somebody. They know the right from wrong, and they don't have to actually hurt somebody in the process. If you're frustrated, take a time out. Step outside of the house. Usually when a father is frustrated, the reason has to be one, that their life is not working out accordingly. The other thing is that they're not validating their wife. They're not taking account in for her that she's got to spend time with the kids. Just imagine if you actually had 6 kids that you had to work with, and your wife comes home and such. What if the wife goes off to work and you're at home, basically, the at-home dad, and your wife is actually working in the office? Then the responsibilities go to her, basically. Her dictation actually happens to be in another point. If she cannot actually, give milk and everything else off to the offspring, well, there's always options for that. There's ways to actually feed the offspring. And it comes from milk, basically, cow's milk situations and such. We've been known to have actually used what's called a formula. Mothers have been known to have actually used formulas when they couldn't actually produce enough food for their offspring. And the thing is that mothers actually need food in order to actually keep the growth process going. If you're worried that the planet is going to overpopulate, think about the archaeological structures and stuff. Well, think about the actual architect. The architectural structures. Imagine what you could do theoretically that would actually be beneficial to get light. We already know that we could actually use lights to promote actual growth of food. We know ways that we can actually even theoretically get bees to actually pollinate and grow things. Just think about it. The biology itself does actually have a way of supporting everything that's going on. Give the people what they need, and you will get what you need in return. Build it, and they will come. Just like the Field of Dreams with Earl Jones sitting there telling the same scenario. And the baseball character saying the same thing. Build it and they will come. The angel baseball player, build it and they will come, because it is actually trying to tell people something. That when they come together and they don't work against each other, things actually happen. Magical things actually happen. It's not always about just the cycle of life, it's more. It's the fact is that we're not actually acknowledging the actual situation that we've got things that we gotta do. And you gotta get out there. You gotta do something. And it's gonna be hard, but in the end, you're gonna actually realize that there's a happy feeling that comes across you, basically. You're gonna realize that you're gonna be a whole lot more happier, and you're gonna find that there's more love in that neighborhood than you ever know what to do with. And you need to make an effort to do so. I found that in my games. In my development of games, basically, my situation was validated by the fact that I go out there and I create a game that somebody else happy. Maybe I might not actually have the game that you want. Maybe somebody else has one that you want. You want to play their game? Then cool. It's a good thing. Because the thing is that not only one person is actually creating a game, not only one person is actually making music, maybe you'll find some music elsewhere basically that you like the most. And, you know, we don't actually all have the same taste buds in food or sounds in music, listening wise, and we do not have the same actual graphical requirements as others do. Okay? Maybe this sexual form right here is really, really nice to people. And yeah, maybe my actual voice isn't really the greatest thing to listen to. I don't know. I really cannot say what I understand. But what I can actually say about this whole entire situation is that you gotta have fun. You gotta have lots of fun! Okay? Go!